The emergency beacon flickered weakly in the debris field, barely visible among the twisted metal and shattered hull fragments. Jean's ship, the Wayward Compass, picked up the signal during what should have been a routine cargo run through the Tertius sector. Another distress call, Randy muttered from the co-pilot seat, his fingers dancing across the navigation console. That's the third one this week in this sector alone. Jean leaned forward, her experienced eyes scanning the readouts. Life signs, too, both weak. Looks like Kasari signatures. Randy's voice dropped. The Khazari were a fragile species, their crystalline biology making them vulnerable to rapid decompression and temperature fluctuations. If their ship had been breached, they didn't have long. Set intercept course, Jean ordered. Full burn. Randy hesitated. Jean, we're already 3 days behind schedule. The consortium will fine us for every hour. I know. She cut him off, her jaw set. Do it anyway. The Wayward Compass wasn't designed for rescue operations. It was a beat-up freighter held together by welding patches and stubborn hope. But Jean had installed emergency rescue pods years ago. After losing someone she couldn't save, she'd be damned if she'd ignore a distress call while she still had fuel in her tanks. 20 minutes later, they drew alongside the wreckage. What had once been a Kesari passenger transport was now a grotesque sculpture of destruction. Something had torn through the ship's midsection weapons fire, by the look of the scorch marks. Pirates, Randy said quietly. They've been hitting refugee ships in this sector. Jean's hands tightened on the controls. The Khazari were fleeing their dying world, their sun expanding toward supernova. Thousands had taken to the space lanes, desperate to reach colony worlds before their home system became uninhabitable. And predators always found the desperate, scanning for the survivors. Randy announced, got them. Forward section, deck 3. It's barely pressurized. Jean, that compartment won't hold much longer. Then we work fast. Suiting up took precious minutes. Jean ran through her mental checklist as the airlock cycled, checking her suit seals twice. Randy would monitor from the ship, guiding her through the unstable wreck. They'd done this dance before, though never with so little time. The interior of the Kesari ship was a nightmare of floating debris and crystallized atmosphere. Emergency lighting cast everything in a sickly blue glow. Jean pulled herself through the corridors, following Randy's directions, her magnetic boots finding purchase on the warped deck plates 30 meters ahead. Randy's voice crackled in her helmet. Jean, life signs are fading. The smaller one especially. She found them in what had been a passenger cabin. A Khazari woman, her translucent skin fractured and dulled from exposure, held a small child against her chest. The little girl's crystalline structure was barely glowing, her internal light flickering like a dying star. The woman's eyes, multifaceted, an alien yet unmistakably filled with maternal desperation, fixed on Jean. Her hand moved to shield her child, a universal gesture of protection. It's okay, Jean said softly, knowing her translator would convert the words. I'm here to help. The woman's breathing was labored, her body clearly failing, but the child stirred, those tiny crystalline fingers clutching at her mother's tattered clothing. Jean could hear it then, transmitted through her suit's external audio, the sound of the woman crying. A chiming musical sound that broke something inside Jean's chest. Don't cry, Mom, the little girl whispered, her voice barely audible. She turned her dimming gaze toward Jean. Maybe that human can help us. The simple faith in those words hit Jean harder than any weapon ever could. Randy, I need those rescue pods deployed now, Jean said, already moving toward them. And prep the medbay, everything we have for crystalline biology. Jean, we don't have equipment for, then we improvise. Time became elastic. Jean worked with a precision born of desperation, getting the woman and child into thermal rescue pods, stabilizing their environment, rushing them back to the Wayward Compass. Randy had converted the cargo bay into a makeshift medical facility, using heating lamps and humidity generators to approximate Khazari environmental needs. The woman was fading fast, but she kept her eyes on her daughter. Jean worked frantically, following the medical database's instructions, administering what treatments she could. But Khazari physiology was complex, their crystalline structures requiring specific harmonics and chemical balances Jean's ships simply couldn't provide. The nearest Khazari medical facility is 2 days away at maximum burn, Randy reported. She won't make it that long. Yes, she will, Jean said through gritted teeth. But even as she spoke, she could see the woman's light dimming, her fractures spreading. The Khazari woman reached out, her hand finding Jean's. Despite everything, the differences in biology, in culture, in evolution, the message was clear. She pressed something into Jean's palm, A data crystal, my daughter, the woman managed her translator, rendering the words with painful clarity. Please, you're both going to make it, Jean insisted, but the woman's hand was already falling away. Humans are better than they know, the woman whispered. Then her light went out entirely, her crystalline body going dark and still. Jean stood frozen, the data crystal clutched in her hand, while behind her the little girl began to sing a morning song that resonated through the hull like crystal bells. Beautiful and heartbreaking. Randy appeared in the doorway, his face pale. Jean, get us to that medical facility, Jean said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. Maximum burn. I don't care about the fines, the cargo, or anything else. This child gets to live. She looked down at the little girl whose light had stabilized slightly in the controlled environment. The child looked back, those alien eyes full of grief and understanding far beyond her years. Your mother was right, Jean said quietly. I will help you, I promise. The wayward compass turned, engines burning bright, carrying precious cargo toward hope. Behind them, the debris field fell away into darkness. One more tragedy in a galaxy full of them. But this time, someone had stopped. This time, someone had cared. This time, a human had answered the call.